Welcome back friends. Welcome to another video tutorial from Shomu's Biology. In this video lecture, we will be talking about endocrine system and it's all about hormones and what are hormones, from where they are secreted and their target regions in human body. And we'll also see the functions of all those hormones and why we require hormones in the first place. Now this is about the overview of the hormone or endocrine system. In the next few videos, we'll be talking about all the detailed questions regarding the hormone and the process of hormonal activity. Now, hormones and all this endocrine system, if we talk about endocrine system in a whole, we can say that endocrine system continues with individual glands that produce and secrete chemical messengers. Those messengers are known as hormones. Okay. Now those hormones travel from endocrine glands and endocrine organs to their target via bloodstream. Okay, so let's say there is an organ present in our brain from where this hormone is secreted, which are chemical messenger which provide informations to the target cell which is present, let's say, in our liver, and this hormone will migrate through the blood vessel in the middle. So hormone is a long distance call like thing in our human body. Now the target cells that receives the hormone, they have those hormonal receptors present on their surface of those cells who can attach with the target hormone, and that triggers some signaling response inside those tissue. Okay, so let's look at this process. The goals for our learning is to identify the well-established endocrine glands in the body. We will also see what hormones those endocrine glands are secreting and what are their target organs, and we'll also talk about their functions and why we need those different varieties of hormones. Okay, and we also understand the process of how that hormone works to the target organ or target tissue. Okay, so let's begin with it. Let's first talk about the most important organs in our body which are linked to produce hormones, known as endocrinal glands or endocrine glands. Now this is a diagram which shows you all the different types of endocrine glands that are present in our body and what kind of hormones they are secreting. For example, here you see near to the brain there are three different glands. Pituitary, which is known as the master gland, which is one of the most important gland which is present. There is also pineal gland and a part of the brain, hypothalamus. All these things together, they play a vital role of controlling rest of the endocrinal glands that are present in our body. And among those glands we have thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, thymus, adrenal glands, pancreas, and many more. Okay, so if you look at here from the beginning and talk about each of those glands in details, but first let's look at the position of all those glands in an overview. The thyroid gland is present near our voice box, so as the parathyroid. Parathyroid is a very smaller version and that is also present in almost kind of overlapping with the thyroid gland region. Okay, and adrenal glands are present on the top of kidney. It's kind of related or attached with the structure of the kidney there. Pancreas is present almost in equivalent position with the kidney, as well as in the front line it is linked with the stomach and duodenum of our intestine. And there are two other hormones and hormonal glands that are present, ovary and testis. Ovary is only in case of female, testis is only in case of male, which produce those hormones responsible for major and minor sexual characteristics in male as well as in women. Okay, so these are the different position of hormonal glands or endocrine glands. Now let's look at let's look at the pituitary gland, which is the most important and one of the most important endocrine glands in our body. So if you look at pituitary gland structure, it is divided into two different lobes. Actually it's known as a glandular lobe, and another one is known as neuronal lobe. These are the two types of lobes that are divided. And these pituitary glands are secreting multiple type of hormones from two different regions. One is known as anterior side of the pituitary, another one is known as the posterior side of pituitary based on its position. Now from the anterior side of the pituitary, it produces 6 major type of hormones, 6 major types, okay, namely thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH, okay, or it's also known as thyrotropin. Then follicle stimulating hormone or FSH. Follicle stimulating hormone is also secreted, which is not provided in this picture actually. It's somewhere between these gonadotropins over there. These are known as the follicle stimulating hormone. It's also secreted. Then we have luteinizing hormone or LH, which is not kind of listed here, but this luteinizing hormone also have important role. It's also functional with the gonadotropin part as well. There is adrenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH, also secreted by the anterior part, which is also known as corticotropin, and growth hormone simply, which helps for the growth of the organism, which is also secreted by the anterior portion. And it also secretes prolactin, which helps in the process of development and secretion of milk from the mammary gland. Okay. Now the target of all these hormones are different. If you look at from the beginning, the TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone, it targets the thyroid gland. As you can see, it targets the thyroid glands, and the target glands are also shown in this picture. It targets thyroid glands and stimulate the thyroid gland to secrete thyroid hormone or TH. So the job of pituitary gland is to control and regulate secretion of other hormones. For example, we see one of such is thyroid hormone here. It also targets, by secreting follicle stimulating hormone, it targets testicle or ovary in case of male and female respectively. And in this case, with the help of this, the follicles in the ovaries of female and stimulates the growth of follicle and the production of estrogen. Okay. And in males, the target is testis. In that case, it stimulates the sperm cell and the production of sperm. Okay. Now the luteinizing hormone is another type of such gonadotropin, and it also targets follicle, triggers the ovulation process. So luteinizing hormone triggers the ovulation process, which is not listed in this picture though, but it helps in this ovulation process and the secretion of another hormone known as progesterone. And that same luteinizing hormone for female produces progesterone, for male produces testosterone. And you know, testosterone in male provides major sexual characteristics, and it helps in the development of major and minor sexual characteristics in human body. Now ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, it targets the adrenal gland and adrenal cortex region actually of the adrenal gland, and it causes the secretion of glucocorticoids, which will be required for the stress response in our body, which we will see later. And the growth hormone targets most of the body tissues to stimulate the metabolism and also for the cell to grow and divide. Okay. And then prolactin, it targets the breast in the female. It stimulates the breast development as well as lactation. Okay. But the role of prolactin in male is not that clear, because it's definitely not the function in male. Okay. So that in a sense are the different hormones secreted by the anterior part of the pituitary, which plays mostly the controlling role of controlling different different types of pituitary glands in our body, and they help them to secrete other types of hormones in our body. Now second type of gland we are going to talk about is pineal gland. And pineal gland produces different types of hormones. Now hormones can be of 3 different types chemically. It can be of peptide, which is protein type. It can be of steroid, which is hydrophobic in most of the part, and it can also be amine type of hormones. Pineal gland produces a hormone known as melatonin, which is this amine type of hormone. And if you look at the pineal gland, it is present near the hypothalamus region in the brain. It's a very small gland, and this in this picture is the thyroid gland. So if you see, though these glands are small, it does not mean the effect of this gland will be less in the body. Actually, the effect of thyroid, effect of this pituitary gland, as you see, it's very small, but still the effect is huge in the human body, because it's a master gland controlling so many different other glands in our body. Pineal gland produces those melatonin, which function is not very much understood, but it's thought to be like this melatonin used to function like a dark and light cycle in our body, and it helps us to fall asleep mostly. So it's kind of work like a body clock. This melatonin kind of acts like a body sleep-wake clock, and the sleep-wake cycle actually help our body to be prepared for sleep every single day and again wake up at a specific time. That's the important part about melatonin. Now if you go to the third type of glands, these are the thyroid glands, and the thyroid glands secrete thyroid hormone, and which has a very important function as well. Thyroid gland produces two very different hormones mainly. There are two types of cells actually in the thyroid glands, which are follicular cells of the thyroid gland. They produce amine based, we talked about the type of chemical factor of the hormone, amine based hormone, that is known as thyroid hormone, secreted by follicular cells, remember. And there are also parafollicular cells. They produced a hormone known as calcitonin. So if you look at this is the thyroid gland, which is also present, we saw earlier the location of the thyroid gland, it is near to the voice box. Now thyroid gland starts secreting this thyroid hormone or calcitonin depending upon the signal they receive from the pituitary, which we saw earlier, in the form of thyroid stimulating hormone. Once thyroid stimulating hormone provides this signal to the thyroid gland, they start secreting different T3, T4 and other types of thyroid hormones. Along with that, they also produce calcitonin. Okay, the type of cells that they produce thyroid hormones, which are T3, T4, these are known as follicular. The cell which produces calcitonin is known as parafollicular. Now the targets and function of all these hormones, if you look, the function of this TH or thyroid hormones that are T3, T4, they actually regulate mainly metabolic processes in our body. They are very essential for the normal growth of our body. They are essential for the development of nervous system and the functionality of the nervous system in adults. Okay, and they also amplifies the effect of sympathetic nervous system in our body. While calcitonin helps regulate the blood calcium concentration or calcium ion concentration in the blood by inhibiting the osteoclast activity. Osteoclast activity helps to remove all those, like removal of calcium ions from our bone and put it into the blood, or again vice versa. So it prevents the excessive resorption of the bone by maintaining a healthy calcium ion level in the blood circulation or in the blood. Okay. Now the another type of a gland that we are going to talk about is parathyroid gland, and the hormone secreted by parathyroid gland is known as parathyroid hormone. Parathyroid gland is located inside, actually in the thyroid gland itself. If you look at the thyroid gland structure, these yellow things are the parathyroid gland. So you can see these are very tiny compared to the actual structure of thyroid gland, and this is the position of the thyroid gland near the voice box that we talked earlier. But parathyroid is very tiny glands, multiples of 2, so it's 4 different parathyroid components that are present here in this thyroid gland location. Now these are a cluster of small glands, and these are found in the posterior of the thyroid. This is not the anterior of the thyroid. this is the posterior. If you look, this is the back view. So you turn it 180 degree, then it will be placed here. So this is the front view, but this is the back view, and you will see that because the cluster of these glands are present in the back side of the thyroid gland only, and they start secreting hormone known as parathyroid hormone, which are peptide type of hormone or protein type of hormone. Okay, and this parathyroid hormone secretion is stimulated by a drop in the blood calcium level. So there is, if somehow there is a drop in the blood calcium level, that triggers those parathyroid glands to release parathyroid hormone, and this parathyroid hormone targets multiple tissues listed here. It can target kidney, bone or gut. In kidney, this parathyroid hormone causes direct reabsorption of calcium. In bone, it causes the reabsorption or resorption of the bone, and in gut, it stimulates the conversion of vitamin D into calcitrol. So vitamin D can be reabsorbed in the intestine, so it takes the vitamin D there in the intestine and helps it to convert into calcitrol, and this calcitrol will regulate the absorption of calcium by the intestines. So it actually manages and balances the amount of calcium in the bloodstream as well as in the different organ of our body, so that our body can have the calcium whenever it requires. It does not deplete it. So if you look at here, the bone releases calcium with the effect of parathyroid, so resorption, so it starts releasing calcium if it's required there. It suggests kidney to return those calcium, and it also convert vitamin D3 to produce actually to calcitrol, vitamin D into calcitrol, which is vitamin D3. It's known to reabsorb more and more calcium there. That's what the function of parathyroid hormone is. Now, other type of gland that is present near the kidney, we talked earlier, is known as adrenal gland. And this adrenal gland, if you look at the structure, these are the two kidneys, and the adrenal glands are kind of attached on top of the kidney structures, and they have kind of a similar in the anatomical structure like the kidney, because they also have the cortex and medulla and different regions. Now if you look at here, these are small paired glands, so it's kind of a hat over the kidney. It's composed of outer epithelial cortex, which are the outermost layer. This is the cortex region, and the inner neuronal medulla region. In this cortex or outermost region, if you look, this cortex secretes three classes of steroid hormones. Okay, so the hormones they secrete are steroid type. So if you look at this cortex area, this is the whole cortex area that we are looking at. Now the steroid hormones, and actually in the cortex area, if you look at clearly, in the zones of cortex, you will see three different zones of the cortex. One is zona glomerulosa, which secretes mineralocorticoids. Mineralocorticoids involved with aldosterone and corticosterone. These are the type of hormones that they secrete. The second one, zona fasciculata. The zona fasciculata, if you look, it starts secreting glucocorticoids and androgens together. Glucocorticoids and androgens. And these glucocorticoids controls cortisol and cortisone. And in androgens, it stimulates androgens. We'll see the function of these things later, but let's say the third one, that is zona reticularis. It's a innermost layer of the cortex, and the zonal reticularis secretes glucocorticoid and androgens as well. Okay, so if you look at glucocorticoids, these are secreted mostly by this zona reticularis and zona fasciculata, while the zona glomerulosa is the only one which secretes the mineralocorticoids. Rest of the region secretes glucocorticoids and androgens together. Okay, now if you look at the structures of different hormones, among the mineralocorticoids we have aldosterone and corticosterone. Aldosterone causes the reabsorption of sodium. and the secretion of potassium. So it's the addition of sodium and secretion of potassium. And the type of hormone belonging to glucocorticoids is cortisol and cortisone. Cortisol regulates metabolism. It regulates the immune system and facilitates the stress response in our body. We'll talk about stress response in much more detail in the other video. And the androgens like estrogen and testosterone that are also being developed from here, these androgens stimulates the growth of start of different hormones in the early puberty that controls the female's sex drive. Okay, because it carries both estrogen and testosterone. Testosterone regulates the sex drive in male as well. Now rest of the part, it's all about cortex that we talked about. If we just go to the medulla, which is the center area, this part is known as the medulla area. There are hormones also secreted for the medulla. It secretes catecholamines and different sort of peptide hormones. Now these catecholamines that they secrete, it's known as epinephrine and norepinephrine, which actually helps in another type of stress response and also facilitate the sympathetic response of fight or flight. So fight or flight response are mediated by epinephrine and norepinephrine hormone, both of them belonging to the sympathetic system, and that are secreted from the medulla region. And they also produce some sort of peptides like somatostatin, which are required in some sort of other functions related to in some cases the inhibition of some hormone activity in our body, which we'll see later. Now let's move to the next type of organ, that is pancreas. It's a different organ though, but pancreas involves not only in digestion, because pancreas secretes some chemicals that also helps in chemical digestion of the food, but except for that activity, pancreas also have an endocrinal activity. It has two types of activity, as I told you, exocrine as well as endocrine activity. The exocrine activity of pancreas invests in the digestive juice production, and that juice help us to digest different proteins and fat. While endocrinal gland, the function of endocrinal glands that are present in this pancreas, or endocrinal cells that are present in pancreas, it starts secreting some very important hormones that controls the glucose level in our body as well as a little of different functions. So let's look at it. So this is a large gland, but it's a kind of mixed gland. It's not only endocrinal gland, it's an endocrine / exocrine gland. So two types of major hormones secreted by pancreas as an endocrinal gland. One is insulin, another one is glucagon. These are the two hormones secreted. Okay, insulin lowers down the level of blood glucose by uptake of the glucose by all the other cells, and it also converts that glucose into glycogen and store that in the liver. Okay, and it also helps in triglyceride synthesis by the adipose tissue of our body. These are the function of the insulin hormones there. And insulin hormone is secreted by beta cells of islets of Langerhans. Actually, islets of Langerhans is a tissue island there present. If you look at the structures in details, you'll see these are the exocrinal glands. So don't need to worry about that now. But these are the endocrinal glands, and where we have different islets. Islets means is a cluster of gland cells which produces different types of endocrinal hormones. Now there are three types of such glands in the islets are found: alpha, beta and delta. The alpha produces glucagon, the beta produces insulin, and delta secretes somatostatin, which helps in the carbohydrate metabolism and inhibits other two hormones, which are both insulin and glucagon. Okay, so here the insulin regulates the blood glucose level, convert it into glycogen and store. It also synthesizes triglyceride in the adipose cell. It helps in the synthesis process, and both is secreted by these beta cells, while glucagon is secreted by the alpha cells. And the function of glucagon is the breakdown of glycogen by the liver and synthesis of glucose from glycogen. So it produces glucose and restores the amount of glucose in the bloodstream. It also produces ketones. Okay, so glucose concentration is raised by the glucagon hormone in the blood. Insulin decrease the concentration of glucose in the blood. Now they should act oppositely. When we have enough amount of glucose present in our body to function, we don't want much glucose to be roaming around our bloodstream, so they need to convert it into glycogen. So we call upon insulin to do that. While we need glucose in our body and we don't have glucose, we are starved. In that condition, glycogen needs to break down, glucagon needs to break down glycogen and to produce glucose and shift the concentration of glucose back into the bloodstream. While the third type of cells, delta cells, produce somatostatin, which inhibits the activity of both insulin as well as glucagon hormone, and it also regulates the process of carbohydrate metabolism a little bit. Now let's look at the ovary gland and the hormones secreted by the ovary gland. Ovary gland is only present in female, right, and it produces steroid kind of hormones. It's known as sex hormones because it is estrogen and progesterone. These are the two types of hormones produced by the ovaries, estrogen and progesterone. Okay, and they also produced another hormone known as inhibin, which is peptide type of hormone, but major hormones are estrogen and progesterone, which are steroid kind. Now estrogen is very important. As you see here, it secretes hormones, and actually the secretion of hormones from the ovaries are released and controlled by the follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, coming from the pituitary gland. Once this gland receives it, it starts producing estrogen and progesterone as well as inhibin. They have different functionality. So now let's look at the functions of all these hormones. Estrogen is important for the egg development, okay, for the process of egg development. Okay, and also this egg development takes place inside the follicle, so it also helps in the process of maturation of ovarian follicle and their balance of producing eggs. While progesterone is important after the ovulation process only, and progesterone only secretes after the ovulation and maintains the integrity of the uterine lining, and it also acts very well during the pregnancy to prepare the body for pregnancy and also keep maintaining that environment so that after the implantation of the egg it can grow and develop into a proper embryo. While the last one, or inhibin, if you look, inhibin regulates the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone, and this is secreted, follicle stimulating hormone, you know it's secreted by the anterior pituitary gland, but inhibin actually regulates the secretion of FSH. So inhibit can actually inhibit this release of follicle stimulating hormone, and by doing so it blocks the release of FSH, so as it blocks the production of estrogen and progesterone when it's not required. Okay, and the presence of estrogen and progesterone is very important because based on the concentration of progesterone and estrogen, the female body is modified for different types of changes that is required during the pregnancy. Now if you go to the testis, which is another type of gland, and testis, the hormone secreted here is also known as sex hormone of male, and these hormones also are steroid type of hormone, okay, steroid hormones, and in this case they produce the hormone testosterone. It's listed, testosterone hormone is secreted, and along with that they also produce inhibin, just like the other. Inhibin is a peptide hormone that is also secreted by the testis. This testosterone aids the development of gametes, that is the production and maturation of sperm cells in male. It also provided the secondary sexual characteristics, and it also controls the libido. And the other one, inhibin, actually inhibit the release of follicle stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary. Okay, just the function of inhibin is the same both in the male body as well as female body. Okay, it blocks by a negative feedback to stop the release of follicle stimulating hormone that prevents the further production of testosterone and blocks the spermatogenesis, while testosterone produces sperms and helps in the process of spermatogenesis. Now if we talk about the different endocrine tissues and their linked functionalities in our body, it starts with hypothalamus. Endocrinal tissues are composed of group of endocrinal cells that are found in glands that are not specially endocrinal glands, but also they are combined together, and once they combine together we have some functionality. And those endocrine tissues are found in regions like hypothalamus, which is a part of the brain. It is found in heart, stomach, small intestine, and also in kidneys. So let's look at those endocrine tissues where the group of endocrinal cells are found together. Okay, so if we look at here first in the hypothalamus, hypothalamus has clusters of neurons that secrete different types of neurohormones into the circulation of our blood. Okay, and if we look at here, there are different regions in the hypothalamus region. Actually, it's known as the paraventricular and supratopic nuclei that is a part of this hypothalamus. Now both of this paraventricular region and paraventricular and supraoptic nuclei secretes the hormones into the posterior pituitary, and they actually release and controls the release of the hormones from pituitary. So we know, till now we know that pituitary is sitting as a master gland. It starts secreting all those stimulating hormones that acts in the different target cells and target organs of our body. But now we know there are also even boss of the pituitary, and that boss is hypothalamus, as hypothalamus secretes other type of factors and hormones that acts on pituitary and stimulates pituitary to release all those stimulating hormones. So hypothalamus is even more important here in controlling the release of hormones compared to the pituitary. Now if we look, the hormones that this hypothalamus secretes to release, and different factors that secretes to release. Hypothalamus can control release of things like, either it can help in turning on the release of pituitary. Actually it controls the release from anterior pituitary, and we also talked about the 6 different hormones secreting from anterior pituitary. It also sometimes blocks the synthesis of hormones from anterior pituitary, because if it does not secrete those stimulators, pituitary will not be able to secrete any of the hormones. So hypothalamus produces different sort of release hormones. For example, growth hormones release hormone, or GHRH. This growth hormone release hormone acts on pituitary, and it tells pituitary to release growth hormone. For example, thyroid release hormone. So thyroid stimulating factor release hormone, if it releases and it acts on the pituitary, then only pituitary produce thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so corticotrophin release hormone, if we look, this hormone release and act on the pituitary, then only pituitary produce ACTH. So that's the second round of regulation, and among them these are the hormones that they control the secretion of. Except for that, hypothalamus is also linked with controlling some sort of posterior pituitary hormones as well. And the posterior pituitary hormones, there are 2 major types, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. These are the 2 types of hormones secreted by posterior pituitary gland. Oxytocin is a peptide hormone that stimulates the contractions of the uterus during the labor, and it also promotes the milk ejection by the mammary gland. That's the function of oxytocin. It's very much a targeted function. While antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, causes the kidney to reabsorb water, and that also have some effect on blood pressure. So release of ADH also controls the blood pressure in our in our body, as well as its help in the retention of water in our body. Okay, so now if we look, all those releasing hormones we talked about, the thyrotropin release hormone TRH helps the release of TSH from the pituitary. The growth hormone release hormone responsible for release of GH from the pituitary. Somatostatin is released, it is required for inhibiting the secretion of growth hormone by the pituitary. Okay. Gonadotropin release hormone GnRH, gonadotropin release hormone, regulates and influences the pituitary to produce FSH and LH hormone. Okay. And DA is the dopamine. Dopamine is a type of factor that converts the prolactin that inhibits all those prolactin inhibiting hormone. Actually, prolactin synthesis is controlled by too many different hormones, but here this dopamine converts into the prolactin inhibiting hormone, and it prevents the production of prolactin or the secretion of prolactin. And the corticotropic release hormone CRH, it blocks the release of ACTH. It influences the release of ACTH from the pituitary gland. Okay. Now rest of the tissue, if we talk about, are not that vital like the hypothalamus, because hypothalamus regulates the release of hormones and factors that even influences the pituitary gland to either release a hormone or to inhibit the synthesis of a hormone. Rest of them, like digestive hormones secreted from the heart, stomach and different regions, gut, kidneys and stuff, those are also required. Those are also required for other types of functionality. If you look at here, for example, heart is a specialized cell, and they also involved with some sort of hormone known as atrial natriuretic hormones, or ANP. This ANP causes the kidney to secrete excess amount of sodium and therefore regulate the blood pressure and the blood volume in our body. So that's a kind of simple effect by the ANP which is secreted by the tissues of the heart. Now if you look at the digestive hormones and hormones secreted by stomach as well as the hormones secreted by the small intestine. If you look at the hormones that are secreted by stomach, the cell lining in the stomach, it secretes a peptide hormone known as gastrin. We already talked about the hormones related to digestive tract in our digestive system videos. I'll recommend you to watch that. Now the thing is, this gastrin helps in multiple processes. The gastrin travels via the bloodstream back to the stomach, where it stimulates the release of HCl. Okay, and it also stimulates the growth of the stomach cell lining. But this HCl helps, the secretion of HCl helps to make the environment of the stomach acidic, and that acidic environment helps the activity of some other enzymes known as pepsin. Okay. Now other one, like the hormones that are secreted by the small intestine, we have different examples and different names for that. Cholecystokinin or CCK is one of the examples. Secretin, it also have GIP or glucose dependent insulinotropic peptide, which is not shown here. Let me write GIP. And motilin or MOT, that's also another type of hormones that are required, which is also not listed there. Now here this cholecystokinin or CCK, it stimulates the secretion of bile or bile salts from the gallbladder, and the release of those bile salts that help in the emulsification of the fat. Except for those bile salt activity, we cannot degrade fat or we cannot absorb fat in our body. We cannot digest fat very well in our body. Now the other one is secretin. Secretin causes the gallbladder and pancreas to secrete bicarbonate ion, and this bicarbonate ion released in the stomach, it neutralizes the acidic environment in the stomach. And this is very important because the activity of the secretin near this duodenum helps in neutralizing the acid, otherwise the duodenal lining of the cells can damage. Then glucose dependent insulinotropic peptide or GIP causes the pancreas to secrete insulin. It stimulates the pancreas to secrete insulin to regulate of uptake of glucose from the bloodstream. And finally the motilin that we talked about, it released about every 90 minutes and caused the smooth peristaltic waves to keep continuing, so that whatever food we eat, that can easily travel through our small intestine into the large intestine. Okay, and it mostly sweep the food towards the terminal of the small intestine. These are the functions of all those hormones that we talked about. We talked about these 4 hormones in the middle that acts here in the duodenum mostly. There are also other hormones, if you look at here, that GLP-1, GLP-2, which are released in the large intestine. We are not interested to talk about that much, but these are the hormones are more important in the regulation of digestive system in our body. That's why we talked about it. Both the hormones secreted by stomach as well as the small intestine, namely the duodenum region of the small intestine. And finally, if we talk about the kidneys and the hormones secreted by kidneys, we can tell kidneys produce erythropoietin. The kidney tissue is not exactly entirely the kidney. You know, the adrenal gland present near the kidney produces different hormones, important hormones, but kidney tissues sometimes produce erythropoietin that stimulates the red blood bone marrow to produce new RBCs in our body. That's helping erythropoiesis. Erythrocytes are the red blood cells, and poiesis means the development of erythrocytes. So it helps in the production of RBCs. And kidney tissue also produce calcitrol, and we know this calcitrol, we already saw the function of calcitrol. The active form of vitamin D is formed with the help of this calcitrol. In response to the parathyroid hormone, they convert the D into D3, which is acting as a calcitrol. It helps in the reabsorption of calcium in the intestine. So as a summary, if we talk about, we have reviewed the major endocrine glands and the location of those glands. We also see different endocrinal tissues of our body. We've learned about the different hormones secreted by those relative glands and the relative tissues of our body. And we also saw the functionality of those all different hormones and their target organs of our body. We've been talking about endocrinology and the endocrine system in human body. And in this video lecture, I'll be talking about the biochemistry of hormones and the secretion of the hormones and their chemical natures. Okay, so let's talk about that. We know we have been talking about the different glands in our human body and the different types of hormones secreted by those glands, but we also need to know the chemical nature of those hormones which are secreted, and we also need to know how they are transferred from the cell to their destination or target organs. Now, based on the different chemical features of those hormones, the secretion also varies. The goals for our learning is to recognize the chemical classes and solubility properties of the hormone, to observe how single membrane or single member of each class of the hormone is synthesized, to know that secretion of hormone depends on the release, synthesis, or sometimes both, and to also learn the neural, hormonal and humoral mode of hormone secretion control and regulation of hormone secretion in human body. So let's begin with the first thing of chemical structure of hormones. Based on the features, the hormone can be divided into 4 different classes: peptide hormone, protein hormone, amine hormones and steroid hormones. Now if you begin with the peptide hormone, let's mark it as 1, the first one. Peptide hormones composed of chains of amino acid sequences that range approximately from 3 to 20 amino acids long. And most of these hormones are peptides that we know of, and most of the hormones that we know of in human body, they also peptides, and they are water soluble peptides. So all of them are water soluble hormones, most of them actually. And if you look at the protein hormones, these are very similar with the peptide hormones, but the difference is, in case of protein hormones, we have larger chain of amino acids. In peptide hormones, we talk about 3 to 20. If it has more than 20, 25, 30, 50 amino acids long, those are known as the protein hormones. That's only. Otherwise, the composition and their property more or less the same. Now, the example of one short chain peptide hormone is oxytocin, while the example of a protein hormone, which is a big one, is human growth hormone or insulin hormone. All these are protein hormones because they are made up with larger chain of amino acid, more than 20 amino acid long. The second type is amine hormones. It contains amino acid, and this amino acid that is present here is tyrosine most of the cases. So for example, the catecholamines and epinephrine, norepinephrine and dopamine, they all are water soluble. One example is shown here is a non-epinephrine. It is also water soluble. Now thyroid hormone is also another example of this amine type of hormones, but thyroid hormone is lipid soluble. Okay, thyroid hormone is created once the iodine is added to the tyrosine. So if you have a lot of tyrosine residues and you attach iodine to it, it converts that tyrosine into thyroid hormone. And the third class is the steroid hormone. If you look at the steroid hormones, they derive from cholesterol. That's why called steroids. For example, testosterone, progesterone. All these sexual hormones are steroid hormones in nature, and most of their chemical constituents are of hydrophobic in nature. So they only have hydroxyl group as a hydrophilic region. Rest of the parts are hydrophobic in those hormones. Now if we talk about the one type of hormone, that is peptide hormone, the example let's talk about is insulin. It's a kind of a protein hormone. It's a bigger than peptide, so it's a larger hormone. It's insulin. Actually, I personally recommend to break peptide and protein hormones and put them together in the same field because they are almost the same. So here insulins are produced inside the rough endoplasmic reticulum of the cell. So this is the rough endoplasmic reticulum where the ER is covered with the ribosomes sitting on it. And they start making polypeptide chain. Once a protein is made and synthesized, it's inserted into the lumen of ER. And then they are packed into the vesicles and sent to the Golgi apparatus. This is the Golgi apparatus shown here. So the vesicles formed from this ER is transported to the Golgi and they fuse with a specific region of the Golgi cisternae. Now the Golgi apparatus releases those secretory vesicles filled with those prohormone. These are the Golgi vesicle. Golgi vesicles are filled with those prohormone which is not activated, and those secretion is mediated, and now those vesicles will fuse with the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane. Once it's fused with the cell membrane, the components are released into the bloodstream. So now the blood will contain the prohormone components that will be carried out through the blood vessel to the target organ. Now activation of this active form of the hormone often take place inside the secretory vesicle while it was being transported. The insulin is stored until the needed the secretory vesicle. Once it's stimulated, it can release those hormones by fusing with the vesicle. This is the whole method of delivering the hormone after its production. Now activation takes place inside the vesicle once it's bulged out from the Golgi apparatus. In some cases also the activation takes place directly inside the Golgi apparatus even. So what kind of activation here? Insulin when synthesized, it has multiple units linked with each other with sulfide linkages. The sulfide bonds are broken, it's degraded to form two different chains, and then that is known as a perfect activated form of the insulin. Now once we need insulin to be present in the bloodstream, and that condition is once we have a high concentration of glucose in the blood. In that case, it provides some signal into the cell, and cell start fusing all those vesicles filled with insulin to the membrane, so that the blood is now filled with the insulin, and insulin will regulate the uptake of glucose into the cell and also converting the glucose into glycogen and store them in tissues. Now these peptides are water soluble and can travel in the blood without any problem. Okay. Now let's look at the second type of hormone, which are amine hormones. One such example is epinephrine. This is the chemical structure of epinephrine drawn. I will not encourage you to remember the structure, but should know what is epinephrine. This epinephrine hormone is normally secreted by adrenal gland, which is just like a cap sitting on the top of kidneys. And if we look at the cross section of this adrenal gland, what we have is cortex and medulla. The cortex region secretes different types of hormones, so as the medulla, and one of such hormone is epinephrine. It is normally synthesized in the medulla of the adrenal gland. Okay, and cells of the adrenal gland are modified post-ganglionic sympathetic neurons, and then the mechanism of secretion is the same as for any type of neuron. So the process of the synthesis of the enzyme, it normally is the synthesis of the enzyme goes through this pathway. Starts with tyrosine amino acid, converts the tyrosine into dopamine. Then the dopamine is converted into norepinephrine, or also known as NE. Now the norepinephrine is converted into epinephrine. Okay. Now once the epinephrine is produced, it's normally the ratio of 4:1 to the norepinephrine. So epinephrine is to norepinephrine is 4:1. That's the ratio. Norepinephrine is produced inside the secretory vesicles and is released into the cytoplasm, okay, and converted into epinephrine and then absorbed back inside the vesicle for storage. Because for production of epinephrine we need norepinephrine to be present. So every time the first thing to be produced inside is the norepinephrine. Once it's produced inside the vesicle, then they are released into the cytosol, and then in cytosol they are converted into epinephrine, then they are reabsorbed back to the vesicle, and then whenever required that vesicle will fuse with the cell to deliver the norepinephrine. Now the secretory vesicles act as stores for epinephrine as well as norepinephrine. So whenever they require, they can release those hormones very quickly, and they prevent the breakdown of the hormones by the enzymes by staying inside the vesicles. Another type of hormones that are also there is catecholamines, which are water soluble, so they can trouble blood and as dissolved particles. Here you see the signaling mediated by epinephrine. Epinephrine actually helps in different type of cell signaling by activation of G protein and G protein coupled receptor. It activates cyclic AMP that increase the heart rate, dilation of skeletal muscle, and breakdown of glycogen into glucose. Okay, whenever the epinephrine is interacting with the beta adrenergic receptor, it activates the G protein that further activates an enzyme known as adenylyl cyclase, which converts ATP into cyclic AMP. And once we have high concentration of cyclic AMP inside the cell, it involves an increased heart rate, dilation of skeletal muscle, and breakdown of glycogen into glucose. Now let's look at another type of amine hormones, that is thyroid. It's a little different. We talked earlier, though this epinephrine, norepinephrine, these are the hormones which are water soluble, but thyroid hormone is lipid soluble. The mechanism of thyroid hormone production is listed in this picture below. There are 2 to 3 months worth of thyroid hormone can be stored inside the follicles of the thyroid gland, and they are designed in a way that they can store those thyroids inside. Now thyroid synthesis takes place in the follicular cells. So if you look at here, this is the follicle of the thyroid gland, and if you see, these are the cells circulating the interior of the follicle. The interior, though it contains larger area, but is not responsible for making the thyroid hormone. The hormone is made in the follicle cells, and if you zoom into one of the follicle cells here, you will see this is the follicle cell and this is the interior of the follicle, and one part zoomed in. Now the follicle synthesizes thyroglobulin and secretes into the lumen of the follicle. Okay, it starts making thyroglobulin and then it pushes themselves into the interior of follicle, and once they secrete them into the lumen of the follicle along with tyrosine, and iodine is added to the tyrosine. As you see here, these are the thyroglobulin that is produced, but they don't have any iodine present. But now when they are transferred into the lumen, iodine is added. Once iodine is added to those tyrosine as well, two variants are going to produce T3 or T4. Okay, this T3 or T4, this numbering, it actually reflects the number of iodines bound to the each tyrosine. Okay, it's nothing but this thyroid hormone is nothing but tyrosine attached with iodine. If 3 iodine attached, it's T3. If 4 iodine attached, it is T4. Okay, the thyroglobulin TH complex is then stored in the follicle until it's required. Again, it will be stored in the follicle inside, and you can store a lot of thyroid hormones there. Actually, almost like 3 months of worth requiring thyroid can be stored. Okay, now upon secretion of the enzyme, it cleaves this thyroid hormone from the thyroglobulin and make it active. Okay, and this thyroid hormone is bound to a plasma protein to transport through the blood. It cannot do that on its own. It needs to be interacting with some of the accessory protein, and then it can take it. As you see in this picture, this is the blood vessel where you see the thyroid hormones are not alone because they are not water soluble. So there needs to have a carrier protein which will carry them through the bloodstream. Now the third type of hormones, steroid hormones, and the example of such is cortisol. Synthesis of steroid hormones are normally mediated from cholesterol, and this synthesis also takes place in adrenal cortex, creates a large family of this related hormones. Okay, so all this synthesis, derivation from cholesterol only. Now the precursor molecules are, so if you write it down, pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is a type of precursor molecule which is essential for the formation of cholesterol itself. And once the cholesterol is formed, this cholesterol is converted to the steroid hormones such as cortisol, such as estrogen, progesterone, like that. Now if you look at here, this cortisol is lipid soluble and it is transported into the blood vessel via plasma proteins. Okay, again, just like the earlier we saw, plasma proteins are also required for the transport of all those insoluble, water insoluble hormones such as steroid hormones as well as thyroid hormone. Now the formation of this cortisol is enzymatically driven as it is with all the hormones. Okay, steroids are formed on an needed fashion. Whenever we need steroid, then only we form steroid, otherwise it's not required to form. Okay, it's not like a hormone like which will be made every single time and stored inside the cell and then use it in future. It's never like that. We only produce steroid hormones whenever we need, otherwise we don't produce and store. That's not the idea for steroid hormone. We saw in case of thyroid hormone, even if we don't require the thyroid hormone, still the body produces thyroid hormone, it stores there for a while, but it's not the case for a steroid hormone. Now if we look at the control of the hormone secretion, there are 3 types of major control of secretion. One is neural control, second type is hormonal control, and third type is humoral control. The neural control is occurred like the adrenal medulla, that is the medulla of the adrenal gland, is directly stimulated by the sympathetic nervous system. For example, epinephrine and norepinephrine reinforce the actions of this sympathetic nervous system there. That's one kind of neural control which is also involved with that. Hormonal control occurs when the hormones from one endocrine gland stimulates the secretion of hormones at other gland. For example, hormone secretion is much controlled by the hypothalamus, as you can see it here. Hypothalamus secretes releasing hormones that acts on a gland pituitary, the anterior portion of the pituitary, and pituitary is activated to produce some more hormones which are known as tropic hormones, and those tropic hormones will act on another target gland known as other endocrine glands. For example, ovaries, testis. These are 2 types of glands which are activated and influenced by follicle stimulating hormone that is released from the anterior portion of the pituitary. And for secretion of FSH, the signal came from hypothalamus in the form of follicle stimulating hormone release hormone. Or let's say from hypothalamus they provide a signal of thyroid release hormone, which then activates the pituitary to release and secrete thyroid stimulating hormone, which acts on the thyroid gland to produce thyroid hormone. This is the positive loop and positive interactions between the different endocrinal glands and tissue to finally produce what is required. Now there is also negative feedback loop. Whenever a hormone is produced from the target organ, it goes negative effect to the actual controller or the primary source from where it is being produced. This is to ensure whenever we need the hormone, the process will be turned on. But whenever we produce the hormone, in that case the cell might not need the hormone anymore. So they will signal the modulator or the control organ or control gland not to produce that hormone anymore. That's why there is a negative feedback always present. The example is provided, one of the example is provided here also, which is a direct sense of negative regulation. For example, production of growth hormone. We know growth hormones act on all the cells of our body to tell them to grow and divide and do the metabolic processes. Now for releasing growth hormone, we need a growth hormone released from the pituitary gland. But pituitary gland is controlled by the secretion of hypothalamus, by secretion of growth hormone release hormone. So if GHRH secretes, then only pituitary secretes growth hormone, otherwise it will not. But at the same time, hypothalamus releases somatostatin. Somatostatin inhibits the release of the growth hormone from pituitary. In this case, there is a positive as well as negative regulation or working as on-off switch working between the hypothalamus and pituitary, known as hypothalamus-pituitary axis. If you want to know detailed about hypothalamus-pituitary axis or HPA, I want you to listen to my earlier video about the HPA or hypothalamus-pituitary thyroid axis. Now let's look at the third kind that we haven't talked about. The third kind is a humoral mode of regulation. The humoral mode occurs when the substances other than the hormones that controls the secretion of the endocrine glands. For example, insulin secretion by the pancreas is determined by multiple factors. It's not only determined by the concentration of the insulin. It depends on the rise in glucose after a meal. If the rise in glucose after a meal occur in our bloodstream, then at that point insulin secretion increases. Rise in amino acids after the meal also triggers the insulin secretion. In addition, hormonal as well as neural stimuli, this presence of other factors, for example the concentration of glucose plays vital role in regulating the secretion of insulin hormone in our body. So this is a humoral kind of regulation. It's not neuronal or hormonal. Now let's talk about the blood levels of hormones, and that's kind of conclude our discussion today. Blood levels of a given hormone can vary widely depending upon so many factors. Even these things vary from time to time between, let's say at the 6 a.m. of the morning, whatever hormone profile you'll have, it will be completely different at the 12 p.m. afternoon noon, and then it will be completely different 4 p.m. at the evening, and it will be completely different at 9 o'clock at night. So those things will change throughout the day, and it's not only because of our normal feature. These things can also change based on your emotions and everything that we know of: love, thirst, desire, hate. Every emotions that a person have actually due to the interplay of different hormones in our body. So whenever you get angry, there is some sort of hormone raised in your body. That's why you are angry. If you change that hormone concentration, reverse it, you'll be laughing in few moments. That's the thing. Some hormones are better for, some hormone creates depression in you, some hormone makes you feel positive, some hormones makes you feel very much depressed in situations. In stressful conditions, there will be a different profile of hormones start rising in your body for handling that situation. For example, thyroid hormone is unique because its increased secretion does not affect blood level of thyroid hormones significantly due to the large reserve of this thyroid hormone in our body, because even though it's produced, it should be stored in our body. But if there is any issue, if there is any problem in storing thyroid hormone inside the cells, follicular cells, in that case the blood thyroid hormone will increase and we have hyperthyroidism. Now hormones are metabolized and also excreted mainly by the liver and kidney. They metabolize hormone and take care of them. So water soluble hormones are easily degraded by the enzymes in the bloodstream and also excreted by the kidneys. For example, insulin. Insulin hormone cycle is determined and depend on the amount of food we eat. That's why the amount of sugar that is present in our blood, it can rise and fall depending upon our food habits in a day. Now insulin has a half-life of almost like 10 minutes only in the body, so it will be destroyed very fast and be released through your urine. Epinephrine, if you look, also have a half-life of 10 seconds, so it's very fast activating enzyme, that is activating hormone, that is epinephrine. Actually epinephrine is called as a flight or fight stimulating hormone. When it's secreted when you are going through rapid stress and response, let's say you're moving through a street and all of a sudden there is a car rushing directly at your direction, so you'll just freak out and move for a while, and that's it. For that spike of all those reactions, like your pupils will get bigger and you'll start looking at more light and you'll be frightened, your digestion system will fall down, there will be a lot of secretion of saliva and all these things. Actually there are less secretion of saliva in this case. In all this changes, this characteristics that they will develop is due to the secretion of epinephrine. Okay, so they only require to be present for a few seconds to few minutes in our body. That's why their half-life is very small. On the other hand, if you look at the lipid soluble hormones, these are bound to plasma proteins and they are less easily metabolized by the body. So they have those lipid soluble hormones require more time to be cleared, more time required to degrade and release from our body once the function is done. So for example, one is thyroid hormone. The half-life is several days, while cortisol has a half-life of 90 minutes. Okay, so here you see two graphs, one for the plasma hormone levels, one for the hormone levels of estrogen and progesterone. Both of them required, and both of them is a hormone for lady, and they are required for presenting that woman to prepare for the fertilization event every single time during a month, which is known as this menstruation cycle. For different dates, you will see the spike, the concentration of estrogen and progesterone will change over the time. While the progesterone concentration is remain high from 14th to the 28th day, it will fall down again, but estrogen secretion increase most at 14th and then go down a little bit, then again at the end it starts rise. So all this hormone interplays prepare a lady for prepare its uterus for having it helps in the ovulation first, then it also helps in fertilization, and once the fertilization is done, it also ensures whether the fertilized embryo can be embedded to the uterine wall, and all these hormones are playing simultaneously. They also have other hormones they will call upon once the fertilization process is done. This is one example. Another example is simply release of luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. You see, at the day of 14th, both the luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone spikes, and rest of the month it's not even working. So that's 14th time or 14th day in a menstruation cycle is called as the time for ovulation. For ovulation, a girl require luteinizing hormone and FSH, so they get very high concentration of both at that 14th day, and the person becomes more fertile at that point of the time. It's the most fertile time during a month, and then it falls down because then they don't have those hormones, and they go away in the second and third day after that, and then it start releasing the concentration of progesterone. So that's how the cycle works. This is one example of how these things work. Now for summary, I can tell you, this is a table I listed for peptide hormones or protein hormones. We say them same things, amine hormones and steroid hormones. There are sources and the principal functions of such hormones that are listed. So one thing I can tell you, that the chemical factors and properties of the hormone also determines the solubility, right? For example, peptide hormones are much soluble in water. Amines, some of the amine hormones are soluble in water, some may not. Example, thyroid hormone, though it's amine hormone, but it cannot soluble in water. While steroid hormones can never be soluble in water because they have large hydrophobic regions in the steroid group. Now the families of these related hormones are produced when the metabolic pathway involves in sequential modifications of the basic starting molecule. The hormone produced by a given cell depends upon the enzymatic makeup of the cell, what kind of, as well as it depends on the situation of the body to act against a condition. Hormones that are not soluble in water are transported to the carrier proteins known as the plasma protein. Blood level of most of the hormones may vary throughout the day, and it also varies based on your age, based on your sex, and based on your mood. And actually we can say, as the hormone concentration varies, that actually change your mood over the time. So all we can say is, if insulin is present, there will be less amount of glucose present in the blood always, and if insulin is absent, the amount of and the concentration of glucose will start rising after eating a food. So that is the reason that the concentration of insulin plays a vital role in our body. Now if there is a problem with production of insulin, that situation can create us different conditions and diseases, and that disease is known as diabetes mellitus, and that's what we are going to talk now. Diabetes mellitus is a situation when there is a insulin deficiency in our body, or as I talk about the interactions of hormone with its receptor, so the insulin signal also works the similar fashion. There are insulin hormone receptor present in the surface of the cell. This is the insulin hormone receptor, and once the insulin hormone binds to the receptor, it also triggers activation of some other kinases. For example, ATK. ATK is one type of kinase that gets activated after the signal of insulin hormone and insulin hormone receptor interaction. Now ATK can phosphorylate other kinases inside the cell. It can activate the kinase, or sometimes it will inhibit some other cell proteins inside the cell. That ultimately triggers the process of bringing the blood glucose inside the cell and converting them into the glycogen. So it positively influences the gluconeogenesis and conversion of glucose into the glycogen. Okay, and it also prevents the breakdown of glycogen into glucose as well. Okay, so there are two types of scenarios when the diabetes mellitus disease can occur, which is the failure of maintaining the blood glucose level in the optimal balance, and that failure can be either the deficiency of insulin production inside our body. That thing is one, and second is there is something wrong with the receptor, that the receptor is unable to properly engage in interaction with the insulin. Both the cases, they cannot be able to ultimately activate all those cellular mechanisms that ultimately uptake the glucose from blood inside the cell and convert them into the glycogen. So based on this faults, we can divide them in two different types of disease: type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2 diabetes mellitus. In type 1 mellitus, insulin deficiency occurs, so our body is failed to produce enough insulin that we require, so the insulin hormone is absent. So there can be difference in the pancreas. If you look at here, the type 1 diabetes, pancreas is not producing insulin much, so the concentration of blood insulin is very less. Now if we have high glucose level in the blood, that low amount of insulin or sometimes very few amount of insulin is not at all enough to convey the signal to the cell to uptake the insulin and store them into glycogen and store it into the muscle. It's not possible. So as a result, the blood glucose level remains always high. And in these cases, we need to uptake insulins from outside. Now for type 2, in this case, the insulin production is normal by the pancreas. There is no problem with the productivity of the insulin. Pancreas is healthy, so as it's producing insulin. Ample amount of insulin is produced and generated. But there is some issue with the target binding of the insulin. So the target, let's say it's mutated or modified in somehow that prevents it to interact with the insulin. So as a result, all the downstream signaling is prevented. So even though there is an ample amount of insulin in the blood, but still the glucose level in the blood remains high. So again, there's a problem. Now if it's a problem of first one or type 1, it can be easily fixed by applying high insulin concentration, artificial concentration of insulin from outside. You can take insulin from outside, and we have insulin available, and you can inject insulin from outside to do that job. But if there is a problem with the receptor, that is difficult. And this type 2 diabetes, though it's rare, but type 2 diabetes is much dangerous to work with because it's a problem of your internal receptor. So nothing from outside can fix by providing the insulin. So it's much complicated to deal with it. Now let's talk about lipid soluble hormones and how they function. We've been talking about the water soluble hormones, and we know one thing very clearly, that in water soluble hormones that we've discussed till now, there is a receptor on the cell membrane, outside the membrane, which will interact with the hormone that conveys some signal inside the cell, and the cell behaves accordingly. But for a lipid hormone, lipids cannot be soluble in the water, so it's completely anti, so it's hydrophobic domain. But lipid hormones can actually directly pass the cell membrane. If you think, because the cell membrane is mostly mediated by those hydrophobic region of these phospholipids that are present in the membrane. So these lipid hormones can easily pass through the cell membrane, and then it can even directly enter inside the nucleus. The example of these lipid soluble hormones are any steroid hormones like progesterone, estrogen, and some other example like cortisol and thyroid hormone. The receptors are located inside the cell. In this case, it's located typically inside the nucleus, and actually the receptor, it also have a site where it can attach to the hormone, and it also have another site with which it can bind to the DNA or the specific gene in the genome. And those receptors are nothing but transcription factors. In eukaryotes, those transcription factors are very, very important mediators for the synthesis of mRNA. And once the mRNA is made, then the target protein can also be produced. But those transcription factors only gets activated when the hormone is inside the cell. In some cases, when the hormone is inside the nucleus interacting with that transcription factor. Okay, so when a hormone binds to like the DNA site is also covered by chaperone molecule when there is no hormone present. But when a hormone binds to the chaperone, this chaperone is released and the hormone receptor complex binds to the DNA that acts as a combined transcription factor. And this hormone receptor complex can trigger the synthesis of the target mRNA, which can convert itself into the protein, and then we can use it. One such example, cortisol, which is a stress regulatory hormone inside our body, which is produced by adrenal gland. If I look at here, that cortisol occurs in a similar fashion. Cortisol produces certain proteins inside the cell, and the production of those proteins actually help us to manage the stress response of our body. Now to make that protein is made from a specific region of the genes that is also present in the DNA in the nucleus of the cell. Now cortisol take entry inside the cytosol and directly into the nucleus, and that cortisol will interact with the transcription factor, making it active because the chaperone is released while the cortisol is interacting with the transcription factor. So now this is the activated form of transcription factor which will go and interact with the specific region of the gene that they want to transcribe, and then they'll transcribe the mRNA, and then mRNA is transported inside the cytosol from the nucleus, and then in the cytosol that mRNA is translated into protein. Okay, that's how this whole process works for a cortisol activation. Now for activation mediated by thyroid hormone, we already seen that. But what happens, there are two types of thyroid hormones. It's simply tyrosine tagged with iodine. It's known as T4, another one is T3. Simple variations only. T4 is a transportable format most of the time. T4 brings itself inside the cell cytosol, and then T4 is converted into T3 inside the cytosol, and T3 can only be able to interact with the transcription factors. So if the cell brings T3 inside the cytosol, it can go and directly bind to the transcription factor and activate the expression of specific genes inside the nucleus. Or if it brings T4, it needs to convert T4 into T3, then T3 will go interact with the transcription factor and it binds to the specific region and transcribe it into the mRNA. So this is how these lipid soluble hormones work. Now for summary, hormones receptors are proteins located on the plasma membrane or in the interior of the cell. So whatever receptor it is, whether it's a cell surface receptor or receptor inside the nucleus or receptor in the cytosol, all of them are protein made receptors. But for water soluble hormones, they can bind with the cell surface receptors and can activate certain types of processes indirectly via secondary messengers such as production of cyclic AMP or DAG or IP3. On the other hand, the steroid hormones can easily take entry inside the cell, can bind with the receptor intracellular receptors, and then those receptors can go and interact with the target region of the DNA inside the nucleus. This receptor's activation engages the cellular machinery and ultimately tell the cell to produce specific effector molecules, proteins, to finally provide some effect due to the interaction of the hormone. And the effects of a single molecule of hormone can be amplified several times and produce a large amount of proteins that ultimately shows a bigger response in the body. Now also we talked about insulin, and we know that level of glucose in the blood is maintained by insulin and glucagon. Insulin try to decrease the concentration of glucose in the blood while the blood glucose concentration is high, while glucagon try to revert the concentration of glucose and make it higher when the concentration of blood glucose is less. And problem with the secretion and production of insulin can lead to two different types of disease, diabetes mellitus type 1 and diabetes mellitus type 2. That's what we talked in this video. I hope you understand the different mechanisms of hormone activations. We've been talking about the endocrine system in human body, and in this video tutorial we'll be talking about the hormone activity and mostly about the hormone mode of action in the cellular and biochemical level, how exactly hormones function, and in the miniature scale inside the cell, in the micro level, how hormone interacts. That's what we want to know. Hormones influence their target cells by binding to specific receptors. It's always true. So if there is a hormone, if I draw, let's say this is a hormone, there is definitely a receptor for this hormone somewhere present in the surface of the target cell. So this is the target cell, and the target cell have that hormone receptor. That's how it works. Now the hormone receptor interaction, it initiates the process of different transforming chemical messages inside the cell, and that ultimately dictates the cell to produce different proteins, and those proteins are ultimately provide some effects and activity in the body. So let's look at this. The goals for our learning is to learn about the hormone receptors that are present, to describe the common types of second messenger that are available inside the cell, and how transcription factors are associated in the activation of specific genes. Then we also see the function of insulin as well as the function of glucagon together to regulate the blood glucose level, which will act as an example of how hormones interplay and work together. And we also understand that hormones induce changes in cellular metabolism. So we'll see all these things in this video. We will talk about two different parts. In the first part, we'll talk about the hormone mechanisms, which are water soluble hormones. And the second part of the lecture, we'll talk about the lipid soluble hormones and their mechanism of action. So let's first talk about the general view of the target cell response to the hormones. Now there are different types of target cells present for different types of hormones. Not all the hormones interact with same type of cell, so they are specific and specified for their job. Hormones bind to the receptor to initiate the cellular response to a chemical signal, okay, and the target cell convert that signal into a biochemical change inside that cell. So whatever chemical factor as hormone interacting with the target cell receptor, it will trigger some biochemical changes inside the cell that will ultimately dictate the response from our body. Now this response is generated by two different processes. One is by direct gene activation, another one is by second messenger system. In direct gene activation, that hormone directly enters inside the nucleus and it binds with the transcription factors which are helpful for helping the transcribe specific genes inside the cell. While the second messenger system works like this, hormones will bind to the receptor. It will further activate some other chemical factors and molecules known as secondary messengers. Okay, those secondary messengers will ultimately help them to finally establish the job, and finally those secondary messengers will produce some more proteins. They will go and help in the transcription of the gene. So in that case, hormone is not directly interacting with the gene itself. So cells respond to this stimulus in different ways, and these are the different ways that we list for the process. They cause the contraction of the muscle tissue. They sometimes also cause the secretion of cellular products. They also affect the ion exchange channels and the ion exchange through the channels. They cause synthesis of new peptides and proteins inside the cell, which is very common and the most common above all. And they also cause the breakdown of storage molecules. All these things plays as an effect after the hormonal activity to a specific target cell. Now if we talk about the receptors, because we have to talk about receptors that we demand. Receptors are complex proteins that only respond to specific hormones. Now there are two types of receptors as well. One is the receptor for water soluble hormones, and another one is for the lipid soluble hormones. So the receptor for the water soluble hormones are only found in plasma membrane. So they are present in the surface of the cell membrane, while the lipid soluble membrane receptors, they are present inside the cytoplasm, or they sometimes present in the nucleus. Okay. Now these receptors will downregulate and decrease the sensitivity when there is a prolonged exposure of this receptor towards the specific hormones, to ensure that the cell ultimately needs what it gets, and whenever it gets all the effects shown and responses are already being made, then those receptors start releasing their sensitivity and downregulate the sensitivity towards the hormone interaction so that the process can be halted. On the other hand, these receptors also have the ability to upregulate and increase the sensitivity in response to sustained low level of hormones. So in a sense I can say, when there is a low level of hormone, receptors have higher sensitivity towards it, and when there is high level of hormones, receptors have low sensitivity towards it. Okay, to actually ensure that a proper amount of hormone is interacting and the cell is responsible and acting accordingly, because hormonal activity requires a very tiny amount, it does not require a ton. Now not all the cells have the receptors for all hormones, and some cells respond in different types of concentration of the hormone differently. Now let's look at the first type of hormones that we want to talk about, that is the water soluble hormones, and the receptor response is mediated by the water soluble hormones. The water soluble hormones are the peptide type of hormones. They bind to the receptor on the outside of the cell, in the cell surface. Okay, and there are two most common type of responses mediated by those water soluble hormone. Okay, one type of response is the G protein mediated response, where it activates the G protein, and cyclic AMP or DAG mediated signaling, which we will see in a moment. And the second type is it sometimes activate protein kinases. Now with the help of this G protein mediated process, they also can activate protein kinases. So ultimately the goal for any of these water soluble hormones is to first interact with the surface receptor for that hormone and then activate some protein kinases inside the target cell. As we know, protein kinases have the ability to phosphorylate different target proteins inside the cell that ultimately produces and modifies different features inside the cell. So if we begin the whole process system, it's listed here. In this process, we need a secondary messenger, as we talked earlier. The second messenger involved in the water soluble hormones, in this case we are looking at epinephrine, which is a type of water soluble hormone, and we see cyclic AMP molecule is acting as a second messenger there. Now in the cyclic AMP first bind to its receptor, the hormone first bind to the receptor. Okay, hormone is known as the first messenger, and cyclic AMP is known as the second messenger, which will be developed inside the cytosol later in this process. So first this hormone binds to the receptor outside the cell membrane. Then the receptor changes shape and activates a protein called G protein. G protein have three different structural regions: alpha, beta and gamma. Now alpha part separates from beta gamma. Okay, so that's called the activation of the G protein. And this G protein activation requires the presence of GTP. So whenever they hydrolyze this GTP binds to the G protein and causes it to activate. This G protein associated with GTP activates another membrane associated protein, an enzyme known as adenylyl cyclase. Now once adenylyl cyclase is active, this enzyme can convert ATP into cyclic AMP. So once cyclic AMP is produced, this is the second messenger. Now the cyclic AMP acts as a second messenger and phosphorylates kinase type of proteins inside the cell. One such protein is protein kinase A. So cyclic AMP phosphorylates this protein kinase A. This is also kinase protein. So now this protein, once activated, have the tendency and capability of phosphorylating and activating other cellular proteins and subcellular proteins inside the cell. Okay, it can activate or inhibit different type of proteins inside the cell, and this process will continue till the G protein is active. Once the G protein releases this GTP, it's hydrolyzed into GDP, it renders the G protein inactive and the process and the signaling will be stopped. Okay, so now you see here protein kinase A can mediate two different scenarios in this example of epinephrine hormone, that this protein kinase A will further in turn activate or deactivate some other proteins that ultimately leads to the inhibition of glycogen synthesis and start the glycogen breakdown. So epinephrine release ensures that the blood contains sugar and the glucose should be released into the bloodstream. So whatever glycogen present inside the cell are broken down by the activity of different enzymes. Glycogen phosphorylase is the enzyme which ultimately break down glycogen into glucose, but that enzyme, glycogen phosphorylase, is activated by protein kinase A, which in turn activated by the signaling of epinephrine through the cyclic AMP intermediate. Now if we see another example of same, as I told you, there are two ways this can happen. Like one is the production of cyclic AMP, another one is with the help of diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate pathway. So let's look at that pathway. This is diacylglycerol IP3 or inositol triphosphate pathway. In this case, diacylglycerol and inositol triphosphate both acts as second messengers. Okay. Now what is DAG? Let's look at it. Normally what happens, now this DAG and inositol phosphate are generated later of this whole process. As we see, the secondary messengers are produced in later stages of the process. So it starts with a membrane attached component known as PIP2, phosphatidylinositol diphosphate. So that PIP2 is embedded in the cell membrane. So as another enzyme, that is phospholipase C. Okay. So hormones binds to the receptor on the outside of the cell membrane, which changes the shape and stimulates G protein the same way. Now that activated G protein activates phospholipase C. Earlier we saw the G protein activating adenylyl cyclase, which is also membrane bound. In this case, via G protein, the receptor activates phospholipase C. Okay. So it depends on which enzymes they are activating. Depending upon the activated enzymes, they will do different functions. So once they activate phospholipase C, this will convert this PIP2 into two different parts. Actually, it will cleave some part from PIP2, and this cleaved part will be known as inositol triphosphate. That group is released, while the two lipid layers or lipid chains will remain attached to the membrane known as diacylglycerol. So they have two such strands, and those glycerol sequences, they are embedded in the membrane here. So phospholipase C converts the membrane phospholipids into DAG and IP3. DAG remains attached to the cell membrane and activates protein kinase C, and as it's a kinase, it can phosphorylate other substrate inside the cell, while IP3 gets released after the cleavage, and IP3 causes the endoplasmic reticulum to release calcium ion into the cytosol. So here also IP3 is acting like another secondary messenger. Okay, and it will involve with the calcium channel embedded in the ER membrane. It activates it and open it so that the calciums can pass from ER lumen into the cytosol. Now this calcium can bind to the protein known as calmodulin and enhance the targeted response inside the cell. And the beauty about this signaling is that the signaling keeps amplified from the beginning. So there is few receptors. There are only 2, 3, 4 receptors, for example. Now let's say there is only one receptor. That receptor can break down multiple PIP. Let's say 10 PIP. It will generate 10 IP3. Now the 10 IP3 can release thousands of calcium into the cell cytosol. So you see, it starts with very faint, but the signal is increasing time to time. So the idea about cell signaling is not to convey that message, but also to amplify that signal so that it ultimately reaches nucleus in the bold way. Now if we look at another type of enzyme that is also soluble, hormone that is soluble, that is insulin. Insulin hormone is also water soluble, and in that case it's a peptide kind of hormone that we know. It's a large peptide, so we can also call it as a protein type of hormone. Insulin is released when there is high blood sugar or high blood glucose, we can say. Release of insulin will tell the cell and modify the cell in a way so that it can start uptake glucose from the bloodstream inside the cell and convert the glucose into glycogen to store it inside the cell for the future use. And when the same person will be going through starvation, this glycogen will be broken down into glucose again and put back to the bloodstream. And for that job, there is another hormone known as glucagon. So this use of glucose and the level of glucose, concentration of glucose in the bloodstream is tightly regulated by the secretion of both insulin as well as glucagon. And both of these hormones, insulins and glucagons, secreted by pancreas, and these are protein types of hormones. So the presence of insulin increases the glucose transport. It processes the glycogenesis, that is a conversion of glucose into glycogen. And the transport of amino acids also stimulates the protein synthesis, and it also makes lipogenesis, that's production of lipids by using the glucose intermediates or glucose metabolism intermediates. So ultimately the job and signal for insulin will be to take the glucose from the bloodstream, put it inside the cell, and then either convert it into glycogen or use any other anabolic pathways to convert that intermediate of glucose metabolic pathways into other macromolecules like lipids. We've been talking about the endocrine system in human body, and in this video we'll be talking about the hypothalamus-pituitary axis and also the hypothalamus-pituitary-thyroid axis, because in our body hormone activations are linked processes where the hypothalamus is a major controller as a tissue that regulates the release of hormones from pituitary gland, and pituitary regulates the secretion of thyroid hormone, which also have important features in the metabolic pathways. So we will see how exactly all these three different tissues and endocrinal glands connected. Okay, and this complex, this hypothalamus and pituitary gland, they form a complex interface between the nervous system and the endocrine system. The brain can influence the activity of neurosecretory cells and hormones that can influence the release of other hormones. Let's look at the goals for this understanding. Our goal for this chapter to understand the study the hypothalamus-pituitary axis anatomy, to review the hypophysical or hypophyseal portal system, to identify the sources of endocrine and neural control of hypothalamic-pituitary axis, and to review the thyroid hormone and how exactly thyroid hormone is also linked with the hypothalamic-pituitary axis and how it's regulated. For understanding that, we need to first know about the pituitary anatomy, and we know it is an important part of endocrinal system with the nervous system, because ultimately nerves are getting as a response sensors of our body, which senses different environmental changes based on which it provides response signals. Glands are one of those response signal elements that provides the action after the event that occurred and the sense that is received. So if you look at the pituitary, it's also known as the hypophysis. We can divide it into two different parts, anterior lobe and posterior lobe. This is the anterior lobe, this is the posterior lobe, as you can see. So this anterior pituitary lobe is known as adenohypophysis, and the posterior lobe of the pituitary is known as neurohypophysis, because this posterior lobe is mainly connected to the nervous system. Okay, so this pituitary is connected to the hypothalamus via a stalk of a tissue called infundibulum. This is the infundibulum region. It's a stalk of a tissue that's linking the hypothalamus. This is the range of hypothalamus tissue with the pituitary region or pituitary gland. Let me take another color. Let's take black to get more contrast. Okay. Now if you look at the structure of anterior pituitary and the hormones that are secreted, there are 6 major hormones secreted by anterior pituitary gland or anterior pituitary region, and all these major hormones are peptide hormones. Okay, and the hormones are listed like thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH, follicle stimulating hormone FSH. Okay, and we know all their function. Thyroid stimulating hormone target thyroid gland and stimulates the secretion of thyroid hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone targets follicle in the ovaries in the female and stimulates the growth of the follicle and production of estrogen. While in males, the follicle stimulating hormone targets the testis and stimulates the production of sperm cells. Then it also secretes luteinizing hormone, which targets follicle, triggers the ovulation and increase the secretion of progesterone hormone in females, while in males it stimulates the testosterone hormone production. Then it also secretes ACTH or adrenocorticotropic hormone that targets the adrenal cortex and cause them to secrete the glucocorticoids. Then it also secretes growth hormones, which actually targets all the body cells and tissues and stimulates the metabolism and thus results for the cell to grow and divide. And it also secretes prolactin, PRL. It targets mostly bodily tissues, and in this case it targets the breast in the females only and stimulates the breast development and also lactation, while the function of PRL or prolactin in male is not completely clear. Now if you can see, one of the all of these anterior pituitary hormones, 4 directly stimulates the other endocrinal gland, and those are known as tropic hormones, direct stimulation process, and the direct stimulation is direct target of the other organs. Okay, and they have the different example of those organs. If you look at this picture, anterior pituitary, this one produces this TSH, produces prolactin, produces growth hormone. This is follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone. Okay. Now the other part of the pituitary gland, though I draw the arrow from this side, but actually all these hormones are secreted from the anterior side of the pituitary there, all the 6. This part is the posterior pituitary, and from posterior pituitary it's mainly composed of neuronal tissue, and it is connected to the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus, okay, with the help of axons. Okay, and these axons are present throughout this linker region that is present between the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus tissue, and this is known as infundibulum. Okay, and this region of posterior pituitary gland is only responsible for releasing different neurohormones. Okay, and these neurohormones are one ADH or antidiuretic hormone, which is also known as vasopressin, and it also produces oxytocin. These are the 2 hormones. Oxytocin involves with the stimulation of labor and contractions during the birth, and this antidiuretic hormone stimulates the water reabsorption by the kidneys. Okay. Now the release of this posterior pituitary and hypothalamic hormones is identical to the neurotransmitter released by the neurons. So that's why we call them neurohormones. Okay, and the molecules that functions as hormones in the hypothalamic pituitary axis are often neurotransmitters or neuromodulators or paracrines in the other places of the body. Okay. Now let's talk about the hypothalamic hormones. Hypothalamic hormones are the first in the series of hormones that ultimately leads to the secretion of hormone by the other endocrinal glands, and we already talked about that in the first overview lecture about the endocrinology. And these hormones are actually factors that are secreted by and actually released by the hypothalamus tissue, which acts on the anterior pituitary to regulate the hormones secreted by the pituitary. Okay, and there are several types of hormones that are linked with the anterior pituitary and their function and the regulation of endocrinal glands. For example, if you look, TRH is a TSH release factor which regulates whether the anterior pituitary will release thyroid stimulating hormone or not. If TRH is released from the hypothalamus, it helps in the release of thyroid stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary, which in turn allow thyroid to produce thyroid hormone. So these are positive loops always presented. Similarly here, gonadotropin release hormone, release the follicle stimulating hormone, and also helps the release of estrogen, progesterone in case of female, testosterone in case of male. Similarly, there are different hormones that are present in that fashion. Now for of this each hormone series, there is also a negative feedback loop present. We already talked about the positive feedbacks here, but the negative feedback is also important for regulating and for inhibiting the release of all those hormones from the hypothalamic regions or hypothalamus region. Okay, and the negative feedback from the target gland can be directed at the anterior pituitary and towards the ventral hypothalamus as well. Okay, so you see, from the target gland they can produce some hormones that will block the release of any of those release factors from anterior pituitary, or it can also block the release of all those hormones from the hypothalamus. You see, so here these hypothalamic hormones are also maintain the anterior pituitary and the tropic hormones to help maintain their target endocrine glands. Now in some cases, in some instances, the hormones of one series will cause the secretion of hormone of other series. Okay, for example, thyroid hormone, it's a complete hormone of different series. It helps in stimulation and release of growth hormone. Okay, and another hormone among them, like prolactin, it is unique because its primary stimulus from the hypothalamus is inhibitory except after birth, when the milk production begins. So all these hormones that are secreted and all these factors that are secreted from ventral hypothalamus will ultimately tell the anterior pituitary to release the hormone, and it provides positive signal from the beginning. But for prolactin, the signal remains negative from the beginning of the organ or beginning of the human, in this case a female. It only gets activated after the childbirth. Okay, rest of them are completely different there. Okay, now we want to see the actual hypothalamus pituitary axis and how actually they are linked in all the different ways. So we saw that hypothalamus is linked with anterior pituitary physically and also neuronical way. So they can start secreting factors that will act on this anterior pituitary to control the release of other hormones secreted by pituitary, which has a specific target. So this is the construction of this hypothalamus pituitary axis. If you look, this is the hypothalamus. Release is the CRH, cortisol or corticosteroid or corticotropin release hormone. This corticotropin release hormone acts on anterior pituitary, and then anterior pituitary gets a positive signal. So anterior pituitary starts releasing adrenocorticotropic hormone, while it goes and interact with the adrenal cortex or adrenal gland that is present near the kidney. Now once adrenal gland receives adrenocorticotropic hormone, it gets another positive signal and it starts releasing a hormone known as cortisol or CORT. Okay, now once this cortisol is released from adrenal cortex or adrenocortical tissues, this cortisol will provide negative effect on both anterior pituitary as well as on hypothalamus. That's what we saw in this particular picture. So the target gland in this case is adrenal gland or adrenal cortex. Once adrenal cortex is releasing ACTH, it prevents anterior pituitary to release it produces those cortisol. This cortisol will go and it will inhibit the anterior pituitary to release ACTH. So synthesis of cortisol in turn indirectly block the release of ACTH anymore from the anterior pituitary. And release of cortisol will also inhibit the ventral hypothalamus to produce cortical or release factor or release hormone, or CRH, corticotropin release factor. Okay, so that is both positive and negative feedback going on to regulate the release of a specific hormone ultimately from the target gland. Okay, so if you look at the parts of the cerebral cortex and limbic system, basal nucleus, and all those different versions and different breaks of our organs, we have strong emotions, we have ingestion of food, we have any case of painful stimuli or trauma or infection, hot, cold extremes, and light input into our retina, and all these things are regulated by the nerves, and finally they regulate and convey those messages. So nerve is acting like a sensor for all those stress and environments and events, and they relay that signal to all those glands, and especially the nerve and the gland link between the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary through infundibulum plays a very important role there. Now if you look at the neuroendocrine reflexes, let's say we have a crying and suckling, it can initiate the milk let down reflex. How? The sensory input, let's say there is a sensory input comes in, and that input start releasing oxytocin. Oxytocin will impact on mammary gland or breast in female, and then it start producing milk. So suckling effect can start producing milk. Normally it's not being produced all the time. Okay, and another thing is chemically sensitive neurons. If you look at it, so now if you look at chemically sensitive neurons, that is another type of example of how hypothalamus regulates the whole process. There are osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus. If you look, so if I just schematic, there are different sensors. If I draw them, osmoreceptors they are, and they are stimulated by high concentration of solute in the blood. So once they have high solute concentration in the blood, it leads to the synthesis and release of the hormone ADH, antidiuretic hormone, from the posterior pituitary. And this ADH targets kidney to reabsorb water. Water reabsorption is mediated. Okay, that's one example. Another example I can talk about, let's talk about it here. It's the next slide. Let's talk about here. It is the circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm means all of us individuals, we have a body clock of our own. That is the reason, you know, every time, let's say you wake up every day at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's kind of a natural, even if you don't put any timer on, even if you don't put any alarm, but still at that point of time your sleep will be very, very faint and you kind of get awake every single day. So it's kind of a rhythm, and if you sleep every night at 11 p.m, in that case your body will be prepared, so you'll feel sleepy every night at 11 p.m. if you have a habit of being that developed over the years. And the reason is that your body is set upon a clock. It's known as the body's clock, and actually hormones are responsible for maintaining that clock. One of such hormone that regulates this clock is melatonin, which is secreted by the pineal gland of our body. But otherwise, if we talk about say input from the retina onto the hypothalamus is one way which your body actually involved with the process of whether it's day or night, right? So cortisol is pronounced high or low peaks throughout the day due to the impact that it is involved with. Okay, so what you can do is, let's say you put a light in your retina. Whenever you're shining a light into your retina, you can identify like this is a morning time for your for you. Now that's the reason, even if you are present in a very high light room, even in the dark, even in the nights, if you are present in very high light room, it kind of affect your sleeping in long run. Okay, this is one of the examples and reasons behind it. The third thing I want to talk about is the involvement of thyroid gland in this hypothalamus-pituitary axis. And actually, mainly it's called though as a hypothalamus-pituitary axis, but you can also put it hypothalamus-pituitary-thyroid axis, because thyroid is also involved with this process. Now, it starts with all those thyroid release hormone that is secreted by the hypothalamus, which acts as a positive signal in the anterior pituitary to produce thyroid stimulating hormone. Once TSH is produced, that will act as a positive signal to the thyroid glands to secrete the thyroid hormones known as TH. Example of such hormone is T3, T4. Now, this thyroid stimulating hormone provides positive signal to the thyroid gland to produce more and T3 and T4 hormones there. Now, they finally controls different metabolic pathways in our body, okay, like transport, secretion, function, synthesis, breakdown of different foods and everything, many things. And in turn, this thyroid hormone prevents, go back and feedback, inhibit the release of TSH from pituitary and release of TRH from hypothalamus. And that's a simple negative feedback loop. So you see, there is also another type of axis which is a positive and negative loops arranged one by another. Now say, if you look at this, the functions of thyroid, it has the function of metabolic purpose, cellular mechanism of action, there is a breakdown, functions of different regions of our body and different things that are linked with it. Now, there is sometimes we understand the importance of thyroid hormones if there is any deficiency of that hormone, or if there is a high secretion of thyroid hormones. We'll see two different adverse effects in that case. One is known as hypothyroidism, when there is a less amount of thyroid hormone produced, and another one is a hyperthyroidism, where higher amount of thyroid hormone is produced than normal. In hyposecretions of the thyroid hormones, it provides low basal metabolic rate, or BMR. It start feeling of no energy, it like start feeling cold, lethargy, sleepiness and impaired memory. It has slowed speech and slowed reflexes over the time. While hypersecretions creates high BMR, it creates restlessness, it creates hyper excitable states, completely kind of opposite thing. It excites you more, it starts sweating, weight loss and ample, like despite of eating ample of food, you still have weight loss, irritability in little amounts, heart rate increase, and in that case heart pounding in some cases can be listed for hypersecretion of thyroids. So these are the regulations of how they actually work. Now, chronic hyposecretion or chronic less secretion of thyroid can lead to myxedema, and actually chronic hypersecretion can be caused by tumors and in case of autoimmune disorders known as Graves' disease, where it in sense can tell your thyroid glands to produce more and more thyroid hormones. Now, decrease of the thyroid can be primarily or secondarily in nature, and that thing in nature is known as either primary disease or secondary disease. Primary disease is one where the gland itself is affected, while in secondary disease is when the anterior pituitary or hypothalamus is not functioning properly. So again, it depends on what is not acting properly. We have different treatments for that. Now, the primary hypothyroidism can be caused by failure. So what I am dividing here is a primary and a secondary. The primary is caused in this case by the failure of thyroid gland to secrete thyroid hormone. So failure not to secrete thyroid hormone, lack of dietary iodine. So if you have less iodine, the thyroid hormone production will be halted. So less amount of iodine is another in the diet. Less amount of iodine in the diet is another reason for not producing thyroid hormones in large scale. While secondary hypothyroidism can cause due to lack of TSH secretion, or TRH secretion. TSH secretion from the pituitary, and TRH secretion from the hypothalamus can be like less, and that can lead to the secondary effect. And primary hyperthyroidism, if you say, this is all about hypothyroidism, and if you talk about hyperthyroidism, we can divide it again in two different parts. Like primary hyperthyroidism can be caused by any sort of tumor which start producing more and more type of thyroid hormones, or in case of immune system autoimmune disorders known as Graves disease. Okay, while the secondary hyperthyroidism can be caused by excess secretion of the anterior pituitary or hypothalamus, because the secondary part is completely dependent on the tissues related in the hypothalamus as well as the secretion of anterior pituitary, while the primary one is directly linked with the thyroid gland itself. So if you have to keep in mind one thing very clearly, that all these things about the thyroid hormone release, they are also not only related to itself, it's not linked with thyroid gland itself, because that part is only about the primary concern of release. There is also another way of controlling the release by the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. That's what we discussed till now. Now if I summarize the whole process, if I summarize the process of what we learned in this video, is that the release of hormones is regulated ultimately in the hypothalamus pituitary axis by the neuronal responses, because neurons are the sensors of our body which senses different environments and situations and guides the glands to produce specific hormones to deal with the situation. Some hypothalamic hormones related to the systemic circulation and related, they control the release of other types of hormones from the master glands, which is pituitary. And pituitary produces some stimulating factors like TSH, LH, GH, ACTH that finally regulates and act on the target gland. But target gland hormones can exert negative feedback control, obviously going back to the hypothalamus as well as to the pituitary. So neurons throughout the brain influence the hypothalamus to regulate the situation, whether it's the content of blood pressure and solute concentration in the blood, or the chemical sensibility of a neuron, or if there is a presence of light hitting in your retina or not. Everywhere those neurons are the sensors getting the message and conveying the message to ultimately from the hypothalamus to the pituitary. Then pituitary can convey it to the rest of the body, or in some case pituitary, if we link it, convert that message to thyroid, but thyroid can go back and inhibit the whole process when it's not required. So in that sense we can call it as a hypothalamus pituitary thyroid axis. Okay, that in a sense is the hypothalamus pituitary axis. And I hope you understand this video. It's all about coordination in the form of positive feedback and in the form of negative feedback that ultimately relates and convey the message to rest of the body cells, and that ultimately provides the body to react against different environmental conditions and situations. And we've been talking about the endocrine system for a long time. We've been talking about several different videos. In this video tutorial, I'll be talking about the stress response mediated by hormone in our body. Now we know that for stress response and any kind of response that we actually involve with, there's the importance of nervous system to go with. But nerves are sensors. They act as a sensor for different type of stresses. But ultimately there are some effectors who actually take action due to that sensory activity, and that effectors are muscles. And who regulates this effectors activity indirectly? It's nerve, but the process of chemical signaling is very important for the effector to provide some response against that specific stress. Now that chemical signaling is mediated by hormones. So those hormones plays very important role for those response activities. So it's like body's nervous as well as endocrine system. It produces a well coordinated generalized response designed to ensure that the health of the individual is fine. Now, goals for our learning is to understand the stress in terms of endocrine function, and we also want to learn how the nervous system directs and generalized non-specific response to stress. We will see the example of some stress response hormones known as epinephrine and cortisol. Both of them, they are released from the adrenal gland, and they have different functionality in the field of stress. We'll see how exactly nervous system regulates the endocrinal secretions, as well as we'll see how exactly those hormones play the direct role in controlling those responses. So in a sense, the stressful response or stressful situations put the body at the risk of different body responses and different types of response depending upon the type of stress, in individual ways to maintain homeostasis, as well as with the coordination of generalized non-specific responses known as stress response mediated by both our nervous system and as well as endocrine system. Now this remains like increased level of epinephrine. These are the hormones that we know: epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. These are the three types of hormone that are linked. Okay, and there are the sympathetic nervous system which regulates the activity and release of these endocrinal hormones there. Okay, there are something known as stressors. Stressors are nothing but stimuli that put the body at risk and stimulate the release of the stress response hormones such as epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. What kind of situation act as stressor? It could be prolonged exposure to temperature extremes, either high temperature or low temperature. It could be heavy exercise, it could be fright, it could be surgery, or any kind of emotional stress like happy or unhappy and stuff like that. Now, to understand how this stress response works, we need to know, as I told you earlier, the complete mechanism of endocrine system. If I draw a schematic, this is the endocrine system linked with all these three hormones that we talked about. Now these endocrinal glands are regulated by this gland from where epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol are secreted. All these glands is adrenal gland, and this gland is further controlled under pituitary gland, which is another endocrine gland. This is a master gland that controls adrenal gland, while pituitary gland is regulated by a portion of our brain region which is filled with nervous system, and this is known as hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is the prime controller. So we can tell that nervous system ultimately triggers the changes whichever mediated by endocrinal glands. So now if we look here, this is how hypothalamus and stress response are coordinated. Hypothalamus directs the body's stress response. This is the prime authority to make any decision. The nervous system sends input about stressful conditions to the hypothalamus, and which then engages both the nervous system as well as the endocrinal system to cope up with the stressful environment. Okay, so there are two types of responses that we see. One is sympathetic response mediated by nerves. Another one is epinephrine mediated response, which is a response mediated by endocrinal gland. And you know, this is the portion which is known as hypothalamus. This is pituitary gland. And hypothalamus can provide also signal through the spinal cord through sympathetic activity, or it can directly provide signal through the pituitary gland to the adrenal gland by the secretion of epinephrine, which is an endocrinal activity. So there are two ways of these things to work. For under sympathetic response, it includes increase in cardiac output, increase in ventilation, change in blood pressure, redirection of blood flow to skeletal muscle and peripheral blood vessel systems. And it also increases sweating a little bit. That's what sympathetic responses do. While epinephrine responses include enhancing the sympathetic response outlined above. So all the sympathetic response are enhanced by the epinephrine response. It also mobilizes carbohydrate, stores by synthesizing new glucose and breaking down fats. So it produces glucose by breaking fat converting glycogens into glucose and supply bloodstream with a lot of glucose to get energy for it. So all of this situated among what is known as a very prime response or very fast response known as flight or fight, or you can say fight or flight response. So it's a single situation response occurred very quickly. That's why it's linked with sympathetic response with nerves and a generalized sense. Don't need to sense what is exactly the stress, but still you start doing the activity because we need to control it very, very fast. So suppose you're walking through the road and there's a car rushing towards you and the car brake is failed. So what you do at the very prime, you just first try to run as fast as you can. So that is a very fast response known as fight or flight response. But there is also another type of response known as prolonged response, which can take more time. The fast response occurs very, very fast because the hypothalamus stimulates the sympathetic portion of the automatic nervous system or autonomous nervous system, and the endocrine system also via the adrenal glands during this fight or flight response. While in prolonged response, it occurs at least 30 minutes after the exposure to the stressors. And in this case, there are some other hormones related known as cortisol. So as we talked earlier, there are hormones called epinephrine, norepinephrine and cortisol. We can divide them in two different groups now because epinephrine and norepinephrine involves with the fight or flight response, while cortisol is involved with the prolonged response. Okay, cortisol secretion is with the help of it's secreted from the adrenal cortex region, but it secretes with the help of the signal coming from pituitary, which is in turn regulated by hypothalamus. See, hypothalamus start releasing corticotropin release hormone that activates pituitary and tells pituitary to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, and then this ACTH stimulates the adrenal cortex to produce and release cortisol. But once the cortisol is released, if we look at here the function of cortisol and epinephrine, we will see that later. But once the cortisol is released, the effects of cortisols include mobilization of energy by breaking down glycogen, fat and produce glucose as much as they can, and this thing happen in liver. They also release amino acids by the skeletal muscles, which can be used to repair damaged tissues, and they also inhibit the inflammation and the immune responses, because immune response demands a lot of care, demands a lot of protein synthesis and stuff which they don't think require at the time of stress, so they shut that down for a while and do the rest of the job. Okay, and they also do vasoconstriction of the blood vessels such as those in the digestive systems. Okay, now if we look at the two different hormones and the functions related to the stress response, one is epinephrine, another one is cortisol. They work in two opposite, not opposite actually, they work in a same part to achieve a same goal, but in a two different groups. The function of epinephrine secretion, if you look, epinephrine is secreted by again the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland produces epinephrine, but the thing is, for producing this epinephrine by the adrenal gland, they are suggested by the pituitary gland with the help of ACTH. Now in some cases the production of epinephrine required very, very fast, so they don't require ACTH for this job, they don't rely on ACTH much, where there is direct control of nerve cells to tell the adrenal gland to produce a lot amount of epinephrine, because they need it in very high concentration in very fraction of time. That's a few seconds they need epinephrine concentration high in the blood. So this very fast transmission of messages can only be done with nerve cells. So we know that this adrenal gland is connected both via the blood vessels and also via this nervous system. So the nervous system that is linked with hypothalamus conveys the message through the autonomous nervous system, ultimately reaches the message to the adrenal gland that they have to produce epinephrine, and that's how the epinephrine is generated. And once the epinephrine is generated, there are different functions to fight against the stressful response. The effects of epinephrine and norepinephrine includes glycogen breakdown to glucose, increased blood pressure, increased breathing rate, increased metabolic rate, change in the blood flow patterns leading to the increased alertness and decreased digestive as well as kidney activity, and also they sometimes decrease the activity of immune response as well. On the other hand, when you talk about the cortisol secretion and how cortisol is secreted, it is a direct interactions between the release of corticotropic hormone released from the pituitary. So it's not a direct nerve mediated activation. This is a slow activation, because this activation or this process of cortisol mediated stress response is required at least 30 minutes after any kind of stress. So there's pituitary and there's hypothalamus. Hypothalamus produces this corticotropin release hormone, which ultimately activates this pituitary to produce adrenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH. Then ACTH will act on adrenal gland to produce a lot of this cortisols, and cortisols then do their job inside. And what are the effects of cortisols? We call them long-term stress responses. There are two types of cortisols involved: mineralocorticoids and glucocorticoids. Mineralocorticoids help in the retention of sodium and water by the kidneys. It increases the blood volume and blood pressure, while the other one, or glucocorticoids, help the proteins and fats to be converted into glucose so that they can make energy by utilizing glucose. It also increases the blood glucose level, as well as it suppresses the immune system for a while they are fighting against the stressful condition. That's what the functions of cortisol. So we see the function of both and how they are activated in both the ways and both the sides. Okay, remember, epinephrine is activated by the autonomous nervous system through the signal coming from hypothalamus, while the production of cortisol is mediated by direct involvement of endocrinal secretions controlled by the pituitary gland and ultimately controlled by the hypothalamus. Now, as we know, this epinephrine and cortisol both are important and required to make us prepared against certain types of harmful situations and stressful environments. So the deficiency of these hormones can lead to certain types of problems, and also not only deficiency, if these hormones are produced in high concentrations, that also can create certain problems. So what happens if there is hyposecretion and hypersecretion of epinephrine? There are two situations. Hyposecretion means there is a less amount of epinephrine produced compared to the normal value. Hypersecretion means higher amount or concentration of epinephrine is secreted than the normal value. The hyposecretion process, there are no pathologies associated with the hyposecretion of the adrenal medulla. But this may be due to the fact the sympathetic nervous system can replace the activity of the adrenal catecholamines. While the hypersecretion is rare in some cases, there are tumors known as there are specific tumors formed in those glands known as pheochromocytoma. Rare event when there is a formation of tumor known as pheochromocytoma. Those tumors secrete a large amount of catecholamine. And those catecholamines is under the control of sympathetic nervous system. So ultimately they will do the process of high or increase the blood pressure. They cause palpitation, rapid heart rate increase, excessive sweating, and high blood glucose level, because they want to break down whatever glycogen and fat, whatever things stored in your body, and start producing glucose, start making energy by converting the glucose, and also they will generate a lot of heat as well. Now this is the rare condition, and this is usually treated with the surgery. With normal adrenal medulla function, it resumes. Now if you look at the same situation, and if there is hypo and hyper secretion of cortisol, what will happen? There are different diseases caused due to hypo and hyper secretion of cortisols. Problems in the adrenal cortex can arise from primary sources, which is the adrenal gland, where the adrenal gland fails, and also there are secondary sources where problems arising from the anterior pituitary or the hypothalamus. The same thing, because it's not about the job of adrenal gland to produce those corticosteroids, or let's say in this case cortisol. It's not only the job of adrenal gland, it's regulated by pituitary gland, which is further regulated by hypothalamus. So the primary problem can associate directly with the adrenal gland. Either adrenal gland is failed to produce the desired amount, or it's producing higher amounts. So that is the primary type of problem associated only with the adrenal gland itself. But all the other problems, let's say there is the issue in the pituitary gland which is not producing enough amount of adrenocorticotropic hormone. So that will also create mistakes, that will also create hypo or hyper secretion conditions, or there can be problem related to hypothalamus. So there are two situations. This direct association or problems with adrenal gland is known as primary disease situations, and if there is a problem with this pituitary gland or hypothalamus, it's called the secondary type of sources related problems. Now in any sense, if there is a high production of cortisol, that can cause Cushing's disease. In the Cushing's disease, and there is another thing known as Cushing's syndrome. Cushing disease is often caused by pituitary tumor. It's a secondary type of issue, while Cushing's syndrome is caused over the administration of glucocorticoid drugs for a long period of time. If you take a lot of glucocorticoid drugs, that will influence and increase the amount of local glucocorticoids in your body, and that will behave badly. And the signs and symptoms includes the moon-shaped face, or we call the buffalo hump on the back of the person, and that happens due to the redistribution of the fat. It can cause hyperglycemia, sometimes leading to diabetes mellitus as well, because there won't be like any amount of insulins to prevent the high amount of blood glucose, because it's always the blood glucose is being produced, nothing is stored as glycogen, it's broken down every single time. So those things. It can relate it and produce high blood pressure, and it can also produce this very common and very prone to infections, because as cortisol suppresses our immune system, so prolonged uptake of glucocorticoid drugs can actually depress your immune system, and that can create the opportunistic infections to rise. On the other hand, if you look at the hyposecretions, where the cortisol secretion is low, that causes the Addison's disease. And the Addison's disease caused by the destruction of adrenal gland or pituitary gland related damage that might be due to any kind of trauma or injury. Now signs and symptoms include that could be like bronzed skin, it could be hypoglycemia, low blood pressure, and also decreased levels of dehydrations and salt cravings due to the lack of aldosterone that will be present there. Okay, and there will be some problem related to the water absorption a little bit by your nephron of your kidney. And what are the treatments for all this? For Cushing's disease and syndrome, there is only one way to do it. It's removal of that tumor, and also if it's due to the drug abuse, in that case readjustment of the drug dosage can take out the situations, but it will be a long-term event to completely get out of the symptoms. While Addison's disease treatment is only work like replacement of cortisol and aldosterone in our body. Now that replacement could be a replacement therapy over few months stretch completely, and then few years stretch, where we reshuffle the concentration of cortisol in our body and make it a normal balanced conditions like before. So now if we talk about the summary, the stress response is mediated at first by the sympathetic nervous system involved with autonomous nervous system control by the secretion of epinephrine, okay, and later it is controlled by cortisol. So at the first, its sympathetic system known as fight or flight response secretes at different sorts of hormones, adrenalines, and also it starts secreting epinephrine to deal with the situation. And the second type is the cortisol mediated, which occurs at least after 30 minutes of the primary response is mediated. The stress response protects the body from harm and ensures survival. Okay, and all about epinephrine and cortisols, and causes the consequence of hypo and hyper secretion of each of the problems we have talked about. And we know this cortisol and epinephrine production is tightly regulated, and that should be regulated because a little amount more or less production of cortisol as well as epinephrine can lead to devastating effects, and that will be very dangerous for us to live. So that in a sense is the stress response mediated with the help of sympathetic nervous system as well as endocrinal system in our body. Hope you like this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to my channel to get more and more videos like that. Thank you.